go to college for 4 years and the college coach, you would see it. Sometimes you got to see it to be it. You learn. We all learn, right? How to be a parent, we watch our parents. How to be a leader, you watch a leader. So it used to be players would be in this great high school program with this old crusty coach who'd been winning for 30 years, but you sensed culture. And then you'd go to college and you kind of sensed, oh, that's a. Then you go to the NBA and by 23, you're like, yeah, Tim Duncan was a leader. And Patrick Ewing was a leader. Well, because they'd seen it. Well, now it's AAU, which is mostly about that dude can play, let's bring him on the team. That's not about a culture. That's just get the best players. And then you spend 1 year in college, max. Listen, after my freshman year of college, I knew beer better than algebra. And nobody learns anything in 1 year of college. And then these guys come into the league, and you're like, well, they're great players, but they lack leadership. There's about 5 guys in this league that I would say, oh, that's a great leader. Every team used to have several guys. Went to a great high school program 4 years, went to a college program. Even the great players, Tim Duncan, Patrick Ewing, and they were in college for years. So a prime example is Devin Booker. Devin Booker is filthy talented. I mean, like insane. But years ago, Scottie Pippen took over for Michael Jordan. Jordan went to baseball, and Scottie was a top 10 player in the league, but he didn't have the emotional makeup to be a number one. And some of it was, when you're a number one, forget the media hovering over you every night. The other team focuses their game plan specifically to stop you. That's a lot. Do you make other people better? You will be asked now as the team leader. That's a lot. Are you a coach on the floor? That's a lot. You're asking me to drop 28 and defend and be it's hard to be a number one. Devin Booker, last 2 games when Chris Paul's limited, worst plus minus in the series. He's never lacked talent. But I think Devin Booker is a little bit of what the league is now. The most talented I've ever seen it. Everybody can shoot. Everybody can put the ball on the deck. A lot of guys can. But I don't see the leadership. And listen, Chris Paul, Lakers' Suns don't play till Sunday. So they got some time here to get Chris Paul healthy. But what Phoenix looks like without Chris Paul being as effective, they look like Phoenix the last couple of years where they're talented. We're not doubting Booker and we're not doubting DeAndre Ayton. I'm not doubting any of these guys. But I think we have a leadership problem in the NBA. We don't have a talent problem. We don't have a coaching problem. We don't have I watch these games. These dudes are doing stuff now. It's insane. I remember last time I went to a dunk contest. It was in Los Angeles on a rainy weekend. We had guys jumping over cars, automobiles. Like talent's not the issue. But when Chris Paul's off the floor, this is why I said he deserved to be the MVP. He's an old guy. D. Wade, multiple years in college. Chris Paul, multiple years in college. Steph, multiple years in college. There are exceptions to everything. But Phoenix looks a little bit rudderless without Chris Paul directing traffic. With that, Jim Jackson joining us now live. So you called the game last night. It's funny, Jim, because you got a little bit of both. You grew up going to the high school program, and then you grew up, and then you went to college for years and years. But at the end of your career, you dealt with a lot of what I'm talking about now as guys that just did AAU, you're a college. And I think you're uniquely qualified to talk about this. You broke into the league, everybody was old school. By the time you left the league, it was becoming a little bit like, dude, you played, 30 games of college? And when I look at Phoenix without Chris Paul, I just see a bunch of talent. They feel a little rudderless to me. Or am I a little too much here?
Well, no. The core, you got to look at the core part. Mikal Bridges had time in college, 3 years, at Villanova. Cameron Johnson had his time at North Carolina. Devin Booker is an anomaly. And DeAndre Ayton, because of the 2 main guys are the ones that weren't in college, only 1 year. Now, there are a number of teams, too, in the league where the leadership aspect, you're correct on that, because they don't have it. A lot of talent, but guys that don't know how to lead. And that's always been the case in a lot of different, I would say, eras of basketball. It just so happened in the era when I came in and even before, because the league was older, you always had that leadership and mentorship.
Yeah.
On the sideline, coaches, so to speak, but also the players. So when I came into the league, it was like Derek Harper was my mentor. Okay, when I came in, Terry Davis, these guys that had been in the league for a while, it was just like, okay, these are the do's and don'ts. This is how you become a professional. This is how you get through the daily grind, 82 games. But they also led by example because they had been in the league 6, 7, 8, 9, almost 10 years. Okay, so it is a big difference. And that's the juggle that you have, Colin, when you have the leadership being young guys who didn't really have to carry a lot of the load in college.
That's right.
Okay, for a number of years, not just one. Learning how to be a number one on the big stage is totally different. Kobe had to go through that. Kobe wasn't automatically the best team leader, okay, because he went to high school. He didn't have to carry that load for 2 to 3 years and what that felt like, how to get guys really involved to win and win big in college. He got right to the NBA, and he had to learn and mature, and that still took time.
Yeah. It's interesting with the Clippers tonight. I said this. Everybody loses in the NBA. It's no big deal. Mm-hmm. But when you get humiliated, that's when guys lose their job. If the Mavs beat the Clippers tonight, it's going to be a sweep. And, listen, we know the Clippers' history isn't great. But there was never really any big expectations. It was brief with Chris Paul. But this team was all big expectations. Yeah. So when failure coincides with expectations, that's when you get humiliation. And I look, if the Clippers, this could be the biggest game in franchise history. If they do not win tonight, they're going to get swept. Jim, you've been around this league a long time. That kabloom. Mm-hmm. I mean, this thing is, you think Paul George and Kawhi are both gone, one gone? What do you see happening?
Well, this is a little bit closer to me because I covered the Clippers all year. So it wasn't the same as being on the road, traveling with the team and kind of sitting down with the coaches and players and really getting insight and getting the feel. But by covering the games all year, I got a really good understanding of what this team is made of. And the biggest trepidation I've always had was when things get tough, who's the voice of reason?
Yeah.
And that's the biggest thing because your two best players are probably your most quietest players on the court.
Yeah.
I think that's part of the reason why you go and get a Rondo, because his voice is loud, because he's been there, done that, and guys really respect him. Yeah, this is a critical game. And the reason why is because Dallas, you got to think about it. You go back to the bubble last year, they felt they had a chance to beat this Clipper team, okay? During the course of the year, it was a huge blowout. First game and Mavs played the Clippers. It was over at halftime, okay? Mavs were up 50 points. During the year, the 3 games the Mavs won, 2 out of the 3. Luka averaged 30-plus points. Luka's going to get his numbers, okay, in this league, Colin. You can't stop Luka. You can try to make him less efficient, but you can't stop him. What's killing the Clippers defensively is Tim Hardaway Jr. being able to get a shot. The first game, Dorian Finney-Smith. Now, part of the game plan was to leave some of those guys open and force them to make shots, and they did that. But in the last game, I mean, it was, Jalen Brunson. It was Tim Hardaway Jr., guys that that can play. Those are the guys that are beating Luka's going to beat Luka. And if they lose this game, I mean, all heck is going to break loose in regards to, just the panic of what the future holds for this Clipper team. I really do believe that.
By the way, Anthony Davis is much better than Rasheed Wallace, but I made the comparison about a week ago. I said, when Rasheed was dialed in and aggressive, he was a handful.
Mm-hmm.
But he went toe to toe with KG and Duncan for years. He could defend. He could hit a 3. Mm-hmm. He was about 70% AD. And I watched that third quarter last night. And you know the story where AD was a guard his junior year. Then he had a growth spurt. And I'm watching him last night shoot, move, fluid, put the ball on the deck, and I'm like, man, the guy upstairs gave him so much talent. Like, I watched that third quarter, and I thought, nobody in the league's going to beat that. Nobody in the league's going to beat that team. Do you think LeBron's ever frustrated that he has to cross his fingers to get that AD?
Well, I think the league is frustrated because AD is so talented. I'm going to back up a little bit. I played with Rasheed, okay, in Portland.
Yeah.
Keep in mind, Rasheed was the number 1 player coming out of high school. This was talent. But Rashid didn't really care about being a number one. He didn't care about making all-star game. When he wanted to turn it on, he turned it on. It was to blow my mind because he was so talented, could dominate. He could be a perennial all-star, one of the best power forwards ever play. But that wasn't his motivation. He loved to play the game the way he wanted to play it, which is nothing wrong with that. I see a lot of similarities with AD in regards to the fact that when he wants to turn it on, he's virtually unstoppable. But then he'll go through those stages where